Hello and welcome to a new video on my channel. Today we will talk about the DLC in Seattle and about some of the top decks we have there and if there were some slight changes in the current meta than we had before. So we'll start with the meta game on day 1. We see a lot of Ruby Sapphire, 21%, we see 18% of Emerald Steel. We see 16% of Amethyst Ruby, 15% of Amber Steel, 7% of Amber Amethyst, which is pretty cool to see that some hyper aggros are still up there and trying to win those matches against Ruby Sapphire and all those control decks. We have Sapphire Steel making a slight comeback with like 6% of the players, as well as Amethyst Steel, which I played a lot in the last few months, and I'm like a really big fan of it. Especially in set 6 we will have a few more options with the pirates and so on, so I will see what I can do there. Maybe next few days upload a video about some new cards that could be played in this deck. We got Amber Emerald, in my eyes one of the best decks if it get the hand that it needs to perform. And we have some blurple here, Amethyst, Sapphire. What's really interesting is that we don't have any Emerald Amethyst in here. It's like others, 5%, maybe even lower than the 3% we have here, which is like really surprising for me, because in Europe you really have many Amethyst green players, Emerald Amethyst players, and not that much of Amethyst Ruby and Emerald Steel players. Now we'll go through some of the decks. That's first of all, we have the second place. Congrats on that. We see a pretty straightforward list. We play 4 Cinderellas, 3 Daisy Ducks, 4 Queens. I think Queen is a really amazing card, and I don't know why many Steel Song decks cut her out. We have 3 Ursulas, we have 4 Smees, 4 Ariels, 2 Baloos, which is pretty interesting, and 2 Gastons, which is also really interesting. But we can see here it's like a more of an aggressive point with Steel Song. So we also play 3 times of the Lawrence. We play 4 Petes, 2 Navines, 4 Rapunzels, 4 Shift Queens. Really interesting. 2 Bare Necessities. I think in the Bare Necessities has always to go up to 4, because it's like a really important card to cut out locations, songs, actions, and so on. We play 4 Let the Storm Rage On, 4 Strength of Raging Fire, 3 Zeus, and 4 of Whole New World. I think it's like a really strong list. I can see that we don't play the Piglet here, which makes absolutely sense if you have like don't need the ultra aggressive opening. Most of the time you can like collect some lore in the earlier, for example against Ruby Amethyst or Ruby Sapphire, and then go on to like dominate the game with your Whole New Worlds and with Naveen and so on. So I think this is a pretty amazing list, and congrats on the second place. Next up, we have like a really spicy idea of a new deck. I think it's like really funny, because if you come from other TCGs, you know you will never get a top cut deck for so cheap as, for example, at this thing. We can see he plays 4 Daisy Ducks, 4 Captain Hooks, 4 Fix-It Felix Jr. He plays 4 Dogs for the card draw. He plays 4 Smees, 4 John Silvers, which will perform really good in this deck, especially if you see all the locations we play here, and 4 Fire the Cannons. Now the thing is, now the locations and the effects of those locations are not that important as the fact that all those locations gain you 1 lore after 1 turn. But for example, we have the 7 Dwarfs Mine, which during your turn, if this is the first move a character, you deal 1 damage, and if it's like a knight, you deal 2 damage instead. Because you have the dog in here, you can like move in here and do 2 damage and like stop your opponent from creating a board in the early game. And I think this deck performs really well against Ruby Sapphire, especially if he doesn't draw the Maui. And of course, with Fix-It Felix Jr., when you play this character, if you have a location in play, you draw a card, which is also really strong. And you also have the Shift one, where all your locations get +2 willpower, which is like really strong if you consider that you like playing a location every turn. So you have like 6 locations, and with Fix-It Felix Jr. Shift, all of those locations got +2 defense. And I think this is like a really interesting idea, and congrats on the top cut. I think this is one of the spiciest, I think even the spiciest deck we see in the current meta, and I will definitely give it a try, and we will see. Maybe spam location is the new meta. We will not know until we try it out. Next up we have a green-purple deck with some quite special cards. For example, we are playing the Anna. When you play this character, each opponent chooses and exerts one of their ready characters. The thing is, if you saw the match against Emerald Steel, he had the Prince John out, and with Anna he was allowed to exert that Prince John because it's not directly focusing on the Prince John. Nearly the opponent has to choose him, so it doesn't affect his ward effect. Then you have the Bell, pretty amazing card. When you play this character, move up to 3 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Pretty good option in this deck, especially if you see that you can trade a lot with this deck. Then of course I think the best card in this deck is the Elsa and the Ursula. And we play some beasts. This beast is from set 2. Whenever opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character. So you're like, if you have the line and if you have like the traits, you can like gain up to 10 lore in like one round. And we have a really interesting item in here. It's the Mystical Rose. Banish this item. Chosen character named Beast gets +2 lore this turn. If you have a character named Bell in your play, move up to 3 damage counters from chosen character to the opposing chosen character. So basically what you can do is when you have the Bell and the Beast out, you can like gain 8 lore in one turn, and that's just with this one effect. And this is amazing. Like, if you get the combo out, this is an OTK deck, and I think some of those cards are like really slapped on. And I think you should give a try to the Beast Reckless, because it's like a really amazing card and it gains you a lot of lore if it comes up. And yeah, I think this is also some spices in this deck, and I think this is amazing to see in Lorcana, like not always the same decks, but just some variants and some new cards all together. Yeah. Next up we have the Ruby Amethyst from Michael Majors, who plays Finders Keepers, which is a really cool tech card against those Emerald Steel decks. So he plays 4 Channelbox Followers, 2 Magic Rooms, 2 Cuscos, 4 Madam Imps, 2 Flynn Rider, 4 Madam Imp Fox, 2 Merlin Crab, 4 Sizus, of course for the Flynn Rider combo. Also, if you don't play the big Sisu, you can still play the small Sisu, just because of this synergy with Flynn Rider in the early game. You play 3 Merlin Goats, which is really interesting. I always like to play Goat 4 times. Merlin Rabbit, Elsa the 5th Spirit, just a one-off, which I think you should at least play 2 times. Maui, of course, 4 times. Lady Tremaine 2 times. Madame Medusa 2 times. You have like really much removal in this deck with those 4 cards. You have Rens on the other side. You have Brawl, of course. Finders Keepers, which is like a really interesting tech card. Maybe I would like put 2 Finder Keepers in to like get that 4th gold and remove maybe 1 library for that 2 cost for that 5 cost Elsa, or maybe remove the Elsa for a 2nd library. And of course he plays 4 Be Prepared, which is like really important in Ruby Amethyst. So yeah, I think it's always, you have to play Be Prepared 4 times. Really interesting deck. I think he got like top 4. I'm not really sure about it, but yeah, congrats. And the next deck is the top 1 on day 1. Really interesting choices here. He plays 3 Chichas, 4 Tipos, 3 Sisu, 2 Bell, which is really interesting, didn't see that one in a while, 4 Grammatalas, 4 Hyrems, 4 Mauis, 3 Medusas, 2 Gastons, which is also slightly coming back, 1 Scar, 2 Hades, a lot of uninkables here, 3 Sisus, 4 Tamatoas, 3 Maleficents, 3 Hideaways, 2 Jump Ahead. I think 3 Hideaways is also pretty much, but I think you can do this because if your opponent has a lot of locations, you can just remove it with it. 4 Wizard of the Future, 3 Brawls, 2 Be Prepared. Of course, if you play the Sisu 3 times, you can like play Be Prepared like 2 times, it's like enough. You play 3 Ice Blocks, 4 Popsicle, 3 Fishbone Quill, 2 Great Stone Dragon, which are like really strong in the mirror match. You play 2 Lucky Dimes, and this is really interesting. The McDuck Mania is back, and I think this is a really good card, especially in the mirror match, and especially against decks that don't have much strength on their cards. For example, against all those discard decks, especially against Lemon Lime, that McDuck Mania will like stay there forever, so it's really hard to remove it, especially if they don't play any quickies. But yeah, this is like a really interesting deck. I don't think I saw any I didn't see any lives from the games with that deck, but I think this could really work out because you all have the main cards like Popsicle, Tipper and Hiram. Like if you have them in your hand, you're like pretty straight to go from there, and yeah, really interesting list. Next we have Candle Burdette. As you can see, it's like really similar to the other deck, especially with the Finders Keepers, because those two were like tested together, those decks, and both chose to play Finders Keepers against those Emerald Steel decks. But here you can see like a more straightforward list, especially because he plays like the Elsa 4 times, he plays the Brawl 4 times, he still plays those Lady Tremaines and the Mother Medusas 2 times, which is pretty important for this removal. And yeah, everything is like maxed out as except of the Magic Room and the Lady Tremaine, the Mother Medusa, and of course of the Finders Keepers. I think it's a pretty straightforward list. Candle Burdette's like generally known for playing Ruby Amethyst really well, and congrats on 2nd place. Then we have the deck from Jan Moy. I think last time he played in a challenge, he tried to play without the Lucky Dime. I don't know if it was like last challenge or like 2 challenges before, but not playing Lucky Dime in a blue steel deck is like really interesting. He changed it up this time, he plays 2 now, and he also plays 3 Chichas, 2 Magic Brooms. I think this is really important for the Diablo matchup. He plays 4 Smees, 3 Mickey Mouse, Detective, 2 Pete's, 4 Hirams. He plays 3 Cogsworth, 3 Ariel, which is basically your win condition against most decks, because with Ward and like 5 floor you can, like if you have the dime out, you can make like 10 lore in 1 turn, which is pretty amazing. You have to play 4 Tinkerbells, 1 Hades, 2 Simbers, 4 Tamatoas, 1 Develop Your Brain, which is really interesting. Plays 3 Fire the Cannons, 4 Vision of the Future. Like in my opinion, Visions of the Future is one of the most underrated cards in blue at the moment. Here we can see a deck that plays Grab Your Sword again, which is really interesting, and I think the choice is to play 3 Grab Your Sword is because of that Emerald Steel matchup. because with Brachiosaur you remove like everything on his board if he doesn't put it in the hidden cove. He plays 4 Popsicles, 4 Fortis Sphere, 4 Fishbone Queens and 2 Lucky Dimes. So I think this deck is pretty much built against Emerald Steel, because against Red Blue you have to basically get those, I think 17 or 18 ink to just like OTK the opponent with Tamatoa and Lucky Dime. And yeah, congrats on making it to the top cut. Next up, we have the winner from the last challenge, Zanzide, with his Emerald Steel deck. He made a few changes. For example, he just plays 3 morphs at the moment, 1 dog instead of that 4th morph, for example. He plays 1 Ana, so he cut like 1 out. He plays 1 Creaky instead now. He also put 2 Babooms in. And this is like obviously also really tagged against that Emerald Steel mirror match, especially with those 2 Babooms. We can see like the Tinkerbells got removed. I don't know if I would do that in my opinion, because I think Tinkerbell is really good not just for the mirror match but also against all those hyper aggro decks, because somehow you have to stop them. But I think like Creaky obviously is also a really good choice. But the thing is, with Morph you can play Tinkerbell on turn 4, which is like really cool and gives you like a lot of strength in the early game, and also like takes the aggro away from all those decks that goes for lore in the really early game of the stage of the game. So yeah, it didn't change a lot, but I think you can see he went for that mirror match tech options, which is like pretty amazing. And I think he had like also food poisoning on the first day and still managed to get in the top 64, so congrats on that. And yeah, next up we have the winner of the Lorcana challenge in Seattle, last but not least. Pretty straightforward list, also not that much of changes. We see 4 morphs, we play 1 dog, 1 Ana, 2 Tinkerbells. As I said, I like Tinkerbell, so I would still play her in that deck. Play 3 Muses, 3 Hypnotize. This is also a bit different from the other deck. Also 3 we don't talk about, Bruno, and also 2 Babooms for the mirror match. I don't know if I would have tagged against Red Blue, maybe with a Lucifer or so, considering that it's like unink and you have to play it on turn 5. But all in all, congrats on first place and winning the Lorcana challenge Seattle. And I think this is like a really amazing list. It's not just the list, it's also the player. I watched all of the games yesterday and today at like 2 AM in Europe. I think it's like amazing how this guy played this deck. I think it's like, I never saw him like having less than 5 cards in his hand all the time, because he used that Prince John really well and all those Hypnotize and Sudden Shields and so on. And yeah, congrats on making it on the first place. That was just a short video from my side. I hope you guys liked it. Leave some comments. What was your favorite deck? If I have forgotten a deck that's like really has to be played out and showed off here. And yeah, see you guys soon. Bye.